behind every truckload is a story and often a strategy. Welcome to Truck and Talk. I'm Stephanie Valle. In an industry where rates rise and fall, promises are easy, and competition is everywhere, what really makes the logistics partner stand out? It's not just about moving freight, it's about solving real problems, showing up with solutions, and building trust that lasts. Today, we're going to be joined by Cameron Panther, who's the Group Vice President of Sales at Mesilla Valley Transportation, and someone who understands that sales isn't just about transactions, it's about transformation. We'll hear how his team is helping clients rethink the way they move freight with smarter strategies, deeper partnerships, and a whole lot of coordination behind the scenes. Well, before we dive into the world of cross-border sales, Cameron, we like to kick things off with the segment that we call Fuel for Thought, where we explore the news that is shaping the logistics world right now. Okay. So there's been more attention lately on nearshoring, especially as companies rethink their supply chains and move operations closer to home. So from your perspective, how is this shift affecting sales conversations and what clients are asking for?
Yeah, it's a point of heartburn. I'll start with that. Everyone talks about it. But everyone's kind of in a position to ask for help. There's a lot of uncertainty that opens opportunities, though, for Mesilla Valley and for others in our space to offer solutions that otherwise, they would not have been asked about if we weren't in the current environment. So it creates a space for us to be nimble, to offer solutions, that are unique in the marketplace. But it is a hot topic, and nearshoring in and of itself, I think, it's been around for a long time, for decades, and it's going to continue. I think at any one time it's about an 8-to-1 northbound from Mexico to southbound ratio of freight. So that imbalance has kind of always been there, but it's become more of a hot topic lately with the global political environment and with, efforts to bring production closer to home following a lot of the challenges that people faced during COVID.
Another trend that we're seeing is clients are demanding more data. So they want faster quotes, they want lane insights, shipping performance metrics. So how is technology changing the way that your team builds trust and closes deals?
Yeah, you can make and tell the best sounding story of all time to a customer. They might love everything that you have to say, but when it comes down to execution, if the numbers don't back up the story that you just tried to tell or you did tell, you're going to lose the customer right away. So ultimately, being able to show with data exactly what you were telling them was your solution, how it was going to work, backing it up is paramount, and so we, that's just, it's the top of the list for being able to prove out your story and close your pitch.
Okay, so thanks for the insight, Cameron. We appreciate it. But now we want to zoom in on the way that your team approaches these types of client relationships. So let's start with the big picture. What is the core mission of your sales team at MVT?
If I had to boil it down, it's solve customer problems in their supply chain and be a strategic partner. So we want to grow as our customers grow, and they are reliant upon us getting their products or their parts or whatever the case is, getting it to them on time, in full, everything, everything like that. And if we can't perform our part, then they can't grow, and we want to grow with them.
So how do you approach new clients, especially those who may not know the company?
Yeah, it's definitely a new marketplace where maybe historically you could say, I've got trucks in this market and let's have a conversation. It really doesn't work that way anymore. You really have to get into what the customer's network is, how do they operate, what does their supply chain look like, and then from there you can kind of customize and tailor your solution, your offering, based on what MVT in our case has. So we want to be able to solve a real problem that they have, as opposed to just, here's everything that I do. Maybe this works, maybe it doesn't. You need to find a hook to really solve their problems.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So how do you handle both domestic and cross-border, or you do handle domestic and cross-border freight? So how do you manage those conversations, and how different are they?
Yeah, cross-border transportation is much more complicated. And so we handle those, there's typically multiple stakeholders at a customer, but generally there's an international team who is going to go through. You have to deal with customs process. You have to deal with multiple languages. You have to deal with multiple cultures. And so that conversation is quite a bit more nuanced, and you have to really dive into some pretty complex details to make sure that is operating how you expect and that we're truly solving a problem for them. Domestic U.S. freight is also complicated. I don't want to discount that, but at the same time, it's a little bit easier because you're dealing with a single culture. You don't have to cross a border. You don't have to go through a complicated customs process. And so the conversations really, they're the same at a high level because you're looking to still solve a problem and transport products from A to B. But there's a big difference in the level of detail you go into when you're talking cross-border freight versus domestic U.S. freight.
So what are some of the most common problems or pain points that clients will bring to you?
Yeah. Well, right now, it's FTZ and it's bonded warehousing space. It's how do we navigate tariffs when you're talking cross-border. So MVT is unique in our position along the border. We have lots of infrastructure, physical buildings along the border that, would show our investment in this space. And so right now it's FTZ, it's bonded warehouse. How do I delay tariffs? How do I avoid them altogether? Paying these duties, or how do I at least store some extra inventory? Maybe I know I'm going to have to pay it eventually, but I want to get it and keep it somewhere where I can at least put that off for a while. I would say that's a common problem. Right now, frankly, the industry's in a position where service is kind of high levels of service are expected, and so we are approaching customers more and trying to find what's a unique pain point that you have. Most customers, are in a position where, again, it's service is already expected, so we have to find a way to stand out. Until we're in a position where it's a little bit tighter and there's more of a need for additional solutions.
Has that always been the case, or is that a relatively new development that this is a problem of people trying to really utilize those FTZs?
It's certainly new. With a lot of back and forth and posturing with tariffs. The global shipping network has really evolved since COVID. It brought to light a lot of problems with having reliance upon overseas production and sourcing of parts. So now people nearshore, like we talked about a little bit ago, but even that's now kind of under threat. It's, well, yes, this is still more economical, but now it's more expensive than it was previously, or it could be. So how do I avoid this? It's definitely been a hot topic the last 6 months, I would say.
Yeah. I think a lot of people think that sales is just about the bottom line, but I know that at MVT there is a real emphasis on building those long-term relationships. So what does a consultative approach to sales look like here in practice?
Yeah, it starts with doing a lot more listening than talking when you're with a customer. So finding the right questions to ask, getting them to share all of their different pain points. What do they need help with? Where are they struggling? Did they just open a new production plant in a new location that they are completely unfamiliar with the marketplace and how that works? Maybe they're having a harder time sourcing transportation than they used to because it's a different market for them. There's a whole laundry list of things you can learn just by asking the right questions with the customer, and that's the approach we try to take.
So let's talk about Mexico for a second. How do we make cross-border shipping less intimidating for those who maybe haven't done it before?
Well, the first thing I would say is if you haven't done it before, you should talk to MVT because we are the experts in that. But you know, for those who aren't familiar with it, I would say that it's a lot more challenging than you think. And you know what I mean by that is a lot more can go wrong with a cross-border shipment than with a domestic U.S. shipment. Just in general, you're dealing with different infrastructure of highways. So you know there's a lot of accidents that can be caused. There's dangers of theft in certain parts, and so you need to have a partner that can track and trace the shipment truly in Mexico. You know, a lot of providers when you run a cross-border shipment, you know it picks up in Mexico, and then you don't really hear about it until it hopefully arrives across the border on time. You know, so we're able to solve that problem and do door-to-door visibility. And so to make it a little bit less daunting, though, I would say to partner with someone who knows what they're doing and who has done it for a long time. Obviously, yes, that's a pitch for MVT, but it's real. You know, I don't recommend just picking up anybody and doing cross-border Mexico.
Yeah, because the company has a lot of experience doing it. So
yeah, and it's not a, you know, I think George in an earlier episode mentioned you can't really fake it to make it in cross-border Mexico, and that's certainly the case.
So can you share a client story where maybe your team made a difference, something that started as a challenge but ended as a success?
Yeah, we have a few different solutions that we've been able to, you know, put together for our key customers. You know, one area in particular, I guess, is we identified an appliance shipper who is delivering to various retailers, and sometimes there is fines associated with late deliveries that are on the appliance maker. And we happen to service those particular locations at a very, very high rate. So what we did was we asked, well, what is your current on-time performance for these specific locations? And you know, they said something along the lines of 94, 95%, which sounds pretty good. But then when we tell them, well, we're actually 99.7% to these locations, and if we could help you by taking some additional volume for there because we're an expert in this particular facility. If you shift some of that over to us and we can cover some surge volume for you, you'll avoid, that's 5% reduction in fines, at that point. So that's a really important thing in kind of a way that we can take a consultative approach with our customers.
Your role also involves collaborating with many internal teams like operations, dispatch, safety, for example. So what does that collaboration look like on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, sales in particular, so if you think about it from, there's the top of the funnel where we bring the opportunity in. So a salesperson, as we've been talking about, needs to be asking the right questions, needs to understand the customer and know what they need, what are they looking for. And so it starts with that. When that comes in-house, we then share that information. Our sales team does. We explain all the conversations, all the pain points we've learned, and we typically get a data set with that. And so that'll go to, we have a pricing team that'll review this. We have it sometimes, depending on the solution, if it's a dedicated fleet, for example, we'll have an engineering individual take a look at that. And so we'll want to show, all right, well, here's the story that I am telling as the salesperson. Here's the story I've crafted from my conversation with the customer. Here's their problem. What does their data say? Does their data align with the story I've been told? And then, okay, great. If it does, all right, here's how I recommend we solve it based on these conversations. And so operations, are you comfortable with this? How do we need to make this work efficiently? Pricing, how does this look on the financial side of things? What sort of, can we get creative and offer you some packages or offer you a discount for services, things like that. And then of course, if, the business is onboarded, we win it, we need to make sure we then implement and execute. So then now you're talking, here's the story we told, here's how we pitched it, this is what we won. Now are we ready to actually go through with what we have to say, or what we said, excuse me.
So it seems like sales here is a team sport.
Yep.
We talk about sales teams, and you were talking about working, you even mentioned winning. So how do you keep everyone aligned and moving in the same direction like a team?
Yeah, it's a constant reminder of, the big picture of where we're headed, right? We have some core goals. We're expanding into, we've rebranded recently into our warehousing, our MVT services, our legacy truckload business, and our MVT logistics. So there are 3 core services we're looking to expand into, and it's constantly reminding everyone to, okay, remember, these are the goals we're trying to get to. Here's where we are today. We still have X amount to go, and then ensuring that we're qualifying our pipeline accordingly so that we're actually set up to do that. If you have a full pipeline of things that are not going to get you to your goal, well, then we need to pivot and make sure that we're doing the right things.
So what do you think clients value most about working with MVT?
I would say, MVT is a really hardworking and just kind of get stuff done kind of company. And culturally, that goes top to bottom. It starts with Royal at the top, and it just goes all the way down with the rest of leadership and down into the everyday people that are executing on a day-to-day for us. And you really see that when you work well with MVT. We pride ourselves on doing things the right way, being nimble for customers. If you have a unique problem, we want you to ask us about it because we'll find a way to make it work for you.
So when you're talking to a potential client, what signals tell you that they're looking for more than just a carrier, that they need a true logistics partner?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, when they start to engage you and talk to you about the complexities of their supply chain, and it's not just a bid pricing type of conversation. If I walk into a customer meeting and the first thing we're talking about is rates, I know I'm on an uphill battle. That's a transactional relationship, and I get it. It's a rate driven industry. It always has been, and that's not going to change. But if the bulk of our conversation is about, all right, how can you be lower cost? How can you be lower cost, as opposed to how can you help me solve my problems, and how can you help me optimize my freight network? Those types of questions, the optimizing, and that's how I know a customer is looking for a strategic consultative partner versus let's just talk price.
Mm-hmm. That does sound like you're trying to make sure that your sales team also keeps up with the strategy and the complexities of being a part of this team, of making sure that the clients understand that it's not just about one thing, it's about many things that you have to offer. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to be a one-trick pony, and that's part of the rebrand that we're going through.
So what does success look like for your team? Is it about, just closing the deal, or is it something like a longer term vision that you're focused on?
Yeah, there's milestones, right? There's different steps of success here. I'm never gonna say that just closing the deal, like I'm not gonna say that alone is enough, but that alone is a win. You got to count it along the way. You can't get to a point where you're a core transportation partner with someone if you don't first win an initial opportunity and get in the door and solve a problem. So success for our team is, not only getting in the door and opening up that relationship, but then fostering it, growing it, and maybe you start in one solution, and then before you know it, we're now a dedicated fleet provider. We're a warehousing solution. We're all 3 services. Mm-hmm. That's what success looks like over time.
It sounds like you're balancing urgency, making sure that their needs are met, but also maintaining the trust as you build this relationship.
Yeah, I almost I would equate it to, I guess, maybe a long-term relationship, right? Your life partner. You first you meet someone, you have this courting phase, right? Or hey, are you interested in me? I'm interested in you. Should we go have a drink? All right, great, the drink went well. All right, let's have dinner, and maybe let's go see a movie, stuff like that. And then then maybe you decide that marriage is the thing for you, and all right, so you get married, but then all right, then you just stop talking to each other. That doesn't go anywhere, and so it's a constant courting of this customer, learning what they like, how they function, what provides value to them, and how can you accomplish that.
So if someone is listening today and they're looking at exploring new logistics partners, what would you want them to know about working with your team?
Yeah, I would want them to know that with MVT, you're going to get customer focused attention, right? We're going to make it about you. We're going to listen. We are here, and we are creative and nimble. Our team wants to know how we can solve any unique problems you have, and we really want to grow with you. We're not here to just kind of open up a relationship and they say we have such and such logo in our portfolio. We want to be true partners, and that's what you're going to get from our team.
And when you're talking about building your team, maybe building your sales team, what kind of salespeople do you want a part of your team?
Yeah, those characteristics I mentioned. You have to be consultative. You have to understand your customer. You have to know top to bottom who the important stakeholders are. When you go into a customer and maybe you talk to one person, and that's great. That's how you open the door. But maybe that person is only focused on one silo of one part of their business, and it's whatever's in their world is all they care about. But there's a whole other set of solutions that we could offer and that we can be a part of. So how do we navigate? All right, well, who are the other stakeholders I need to bring into this? How do I become more than just again, like I said earlier, a one-trick pony? I'm solving one problem. That's great, but maybe they have multiple ones that we could also be of value to. So we really want people on the team that are asking those critical questions, finding new ways for MVT to solve a problem for a customer that they haven't been able to solve before.
Is there anything else that you could think of that you would want people to know about MVT?
It's a great company. The great leadership. It really is a place where you're going to get attention. You're going to get you're not only going to get the MVT work ethic and the fact that we will do whatever it takes to get things done, but you're also going to get a true strategic partner. So if you need us to cover a last second couple of loads because you've got a peak season, a couple extra orders that maybe you didn't plan for, we're here for that. But also, if you want to plan your North America transportation network for the next 3 to 5 years, and maybe you're working out your nearshoring strategy, we're here for that too. So we really are a unique place in that regard.
All right. Well, Cameron, thank you for walking us through what a smart logistics really looks like from a sales perspective. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
It's clear that at MVT, earning a client's business is just the beginning. The real work is about earning the trust over time, right?
Yeah.
Great.
That's right.
Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.
And that is a wrap from Truck and Talk, your pit stop for fresh takes, smart strategies, and the people keeping freight in motion. To learn more about domestic and cross-border solutions, you can visit m-v-t.com. And be sure to follow and subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm Stephanie Valle. Stay safe, stay sharp, and keep on trucking.